Hi, everybody, and welcome to our workshop for today on this March 16th. We're really excited for our workshop for today, our discussion that we'll be bringing to you guys. My name is Dorima Hamilton, and I'm the Executive Director of Ideal CDC. We're a nonprofit located in East Los Angeles, serving our community here through our various educational resources, our workshops, and different things that we have going on. Right now, we are providing free COVID testing for everybody at our facilities. We've opened them up since we're not using them to make sure that our community continues to stay safe, healthy. And so if you or your business owners or your coworkers need a COVID test, come to our facilities for a free COVID test Tuesday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. We're right there. No reservations required. But anyway, I just want to welcome everybody that's joining us from the SPD, from our Facebook page, all of our groups and our business owners, our pastors that are joining us for this topic for today. I know many of you have asked us about this specific topic. How do I get started with my small business banking? How do I open up an account for my small business or perhaps for my church? How do I go about doing that? What do you need? What are the requirements that you need as far as paperwork or different things that you need to have in place to make this process easier? And so today we have joining us Maurice from Pacific Premier Bank that will be bringing this topic. But before I hand it over and get started with today's discussion, I do want to go over a few housekeeping items, and that is to share this workshop. If you know other business owners that perhaps you think this would be beneficial for them, tag them in the comments below. Let them know that we're having the discussion. Today, we're going to do it a little bit different in that we're going to be answering all your questions right here live. And so please feel free to comment below. Let us know what you need, how we can help you, what questions you have. And if we're able to, we'll be answering those questions throughout this hour. And so it's a little different, but I think, we did this earlier today and everybody seemed to really appreciate the conversation and the information that you're receiving here live from someone that is actually in the industry, has worked with business owners, different backgrounds. And so we're really excited for that. For today, like this workshop, let us know if you like this format, if you prefer a presentation. That way we can adjust and we can bring more that you find resourceful, useful, and stuff that you feel like you walk away with something you can start applying today. But without further ado, I want to welcome Maurice that's going to be joining us for this conversation, that's going to be answering
Thank
our
you.
questions for today. Maurice, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us
Thank you.
today.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. Glad to get back to the community. Like mentioned before, I've been in the banking industry for over 20 years, worked for all the big banks from Citibanks, B of A's, Chase's, you name it, I worked there. I've been at Pacific Premier for the last 5 years. And right now I'm doing commercial loans, but been a branch manager, worked in most things in the bank. So I'm more than happy to answer most questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Sounds like you started when you were a young kid in the banking industry. So,
Thank
but we appreciate you joining us. So, let's just get started with the conversation. And, one of the questions that I get asked time and time again is, who do I go to when I walk into a branch, and what paperwork do I need if I want to open a business account for my business?
So, normally what you do is you usually go into the branch or make an appointment. If you're going to wherever your bank is, I would say make an appointment with them. Or honestly, you can just walk in, speak to any of the business bankers, and they should be able to assist with you. Documentation totally depends on what you're opening from a DBA, which is also called a fictitious business statement thing, or a LLC or a corporation. Usually, most people that just start out usually have a DBA, but there is different options, and with each option is there's certain requirements.
Okay. Okay. And then I did have some people ask me, am I able to open up an account using the permits that I have for my business, specifically for a cleaning business that provides cleaning services for churches, for other businesses? Can I use that?
Uh, no. If you have a cleaning business and it's only in your name, so Jane Smith Cleaning
Mm,
Services, you don't need a DBA. You just walk in, you use your name because you don't need to go to the county recorders and say, hey, I want to open up a business in my name. If you're using your name, no documentation is needed. If you're using just your first name, then there's documentation needed. Like Jane's cleaning service,
Okay.
then you would probably have to get documentation. But you know, if you're not using that and you're using the name, I would say you would have to go to the local county clerk and just apply for a DBA. And I think that costs like 30 bucks, 40 bucks. I'm not sure.
Okay, cool. Um, Another question that I get asked, once I go in and want to open a business account, are there any fees tied to opening the account? And then a second part to that question is, do I need to maintain a certain amount in that account every day?
Most banks have requirements for business accounts. It's kind of different than personal accounts
Mm-hmm.
where, there's some free checkings out there. I would say, yes, usually it's $100, $100 in most banks to open an account. Uh, Requirements differ from bank to bank. I think our lowest one at our bank is like 1,500, which I think is kind of the norm around. I've seen some for 500.
Mm-hmm.
I think usually the bigger banks usually have more of a bargain as far as requirements because, they deal with a lot of people. To them, it's not going to be, they're not making money off as much on the requirements.
Okay. Yeah. And that's something that if that I get asked time and time again, especially with a business account, is if I need to maintain a daily balance or a monthly balance. And I think you mentioned it kind of depends on the account that you have, but also the financial institution with who you have the account with.
And another note on that part is you have to be, when you do talk to each bank, make sure you ask them what it is.
Yeah.
So some banks will say an average balance of 1500, but you cannot drop ever below 1500.
Mm,
And some will do an average where if you had 2000 and 1000 and it'll work out as an average and then it'll offset because as long as you have 1500. So you have to be kind of ask those questions as to what happens if I drop below the minimum. Is it the actual average or can I not drop below it?
okay. That's good. And that's true. And that's something that I tell a lot of people is you want to make sure you read because not everybody just because it's a simple checking account doesn't mean it's the same for every financial institution. You want
Correct.
to make sure you read all the paperwork. And if you don't understand, ask your banker there to answer those
Yes.
questions and help clarify. Um, Another question that I get asked over and over again is, am I able to open a business account, checking or savings using an ITIN number?
Yes. You can open up most business accounts with a ITIN number. Certain banks, certain small banks, maybe not,
Yeah.
but most of the big banks, a lot of banks do take them. There's just maybe different requirements needed if they do take an ITIN. They may ask you for, yeah, other information.
Okay. And I have a question right here about what is the difference between a regular business account and a personal bank account?
Uh, a personal is made for, daily stuff, buying groceries, putting
Hmm.
gas, your normal bills.
Yeah,
Business account is mainly for what it sounds like, your business. So
right.
if you're going to write stuff off on your taxes later or do stuff, it's a great way to separate what went into the business and what went into your personal that
Yeah.
you're spending cash, your day-to-day cash. But business should be left to mainly doing business stuff and you shouldn't try to commingle it.
Yeah.
Just so when you do develop your business, it grows bigger and stronger, you'll know exactly what to look for and you'll see, okay, this is what it took, this is how much I need to spend on my business, this is how much my this expense for the business costs, so you don't have to fumble through your personal expenses.
Yeah, and I think you hit something very key right there is commingling. And I've seen that a lot talking with our business owners that they commingle a lot of their expenses and then it becomes very, very hard when they try to apply even just for that PPP loan to figure
Yeah.
out, okay, what are you actually bringing in and what's a business cost? Can you talk a little bit about that when it comes to lending, how important it is to separate those transactions?
Correct. It's key because when we do analysis for, I guess, loans, one of the things we ask for is your bank statements. And we like to look at the bank statements to see what activities are there, what, things are coming out and coming in. And when it is sort of commingled, sometimes this doesn't make sense to us. And
Mhm.
a lot of times when things don't make sense, we just decide not to do it. And that's how banks work. If there's no clear explanation that this is a business account, this is for your business, this is how you're making generating revenues and money, then you know it becomes harder for us to approve stuff.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's something that I saw, especially when the first round of PPP came out. I had a lot of people contacting me and they said, well, I make this much money, but it was so hard from the lenders to really see, especially if they don't have their tax returns, to really see
Yes.
what you actually make and how important that is. Can you talk about how the importance of having those tax returns when applying for loans? Because I've had a ton of people say, oh, well, I do my own accounting and I haven't filed taxes, and how important that is from a lending perspective for the business.
So a lot of the people that got the PPP loans had, I don't want to say good accountants, but had used CPAs, know the value of CPAs and the tax preparers. So when they needed documentation or whatever else, they had that quick in hand. And a lot of these CPAs who that's their job,
Mhm.
pretty much knew how to submit it and everything else. If you're in line behind a million other people that want PPP loans,
Mhm.
and let's say you get to someone that says, "Well, we need this business financial," and you're that person in line, and said, "Well, I don't have it. I'm still filing it. Let me look." Okay,
Mhm.
then get back to us. Your name automatically goes to the back of the line,
Yeah.
and so it moves backwards and stuff like that. And you know, the key is having everything ready so you know when they ask. Taxes are very important, especially when you're doing loans, especially in our cases, we ask for 3 years tax returns. You know, the only other thing I would tell you about tax returns with businesses is I know you want to write off everything
Yeah.
and its mother kind of thing, but for you sometimes to get a loan or apply for a loan, you got to show revenues. And yes, you're
Yeah.
going to pay taxes on it, but
Right.
you're kind of have to, it's a double-edged sword. Either you pay taxes and you want to buy a building or buy a loan, or,
Mhm.
so you have to kind of show you're making more revenue in sales instead of hiding certain sales kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that is very true. I actually talked to a business owner last year that they were reporting only 30,000 of their 50,000s that they make every
Hmm.
single month to save them on taxes, but now when that
Yeah.
came, they weren't able to claim that full 50, and so long term it hurt
Right.
them because they weren't able to keep some of their staff employed because they didn't report everything,
Yes.
thinking that it would yeah, back then it saved them probably a few $1,000s, but now they're in a much tougher situation.
It's funny how these things suddenly started arising
Yeah,
with the COVID and trying to get things. And, it's hindsight now, but it's one of those things where, you know, sometimes it's better to do what you should have done
yeah,
versus, yeah, you saved 1,000, 2,000, but you probably made more than that anyway. So
right.
it's a small hit to yourself, to be honest
Yeah.
with you.
No, and that's very true, and I see that a lot with the business owners. I'm like, "Yeah, you might be saving something now, but look at what it prevented you from able even just to obtain a loan to grow your business.
Yeah.
It'll make it hard if you only show a certain amount of revenue versus what you're actually making." And so, I know it's kind of like a double like you said, a double-edged
Yeah.
sword. Like, what do I save now or what do I do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that, like I said, I've seen many of clients in my time in banking get hurt by that. And usually the only thing eligible for them is credit based products that are like
Mhm.
credit cards, like
Yeah.
small types of lines of credit that's just solely based on your credit, and then they'll give it to you. Is once they start showing taxes, it doesn't help them.
Right, right. Which kind of brings me to the other question that I had someone ask right now is when it comes to applying for loans as a small business owner, do you also take into consideration my personal credit or just the credit of that business?
Correct. There's always going to be a guarantor, and that's
Mm,
a person applying for a loan. It goes towards business credit once it gets established. So it's actually a good thing to establish business credit. But, i- even if the business is new and let's say your credit is horrible or thing, most likely you're not going to get a loan with us.
yeah.
Your credit should be at least average.
Okay.
The better the credit score, the better that's things are eligible for you. I know certain big banks, when you open up a new account in the business, sometimes there's a pop-up screen, because I've seen it when I worked at Wells and Chase, and there'll be a pop-up screen and say client is eligible for 30,000 line of credit or
Mm,
50,000, and that is strictly credit enforced by
mm.
the personal credit. It has nothing to do with the business credit, unless randomly they have a lot of business credit.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
And this is kind of leads into the next question that I'm getting asked, and that is if there's two business associates or two owners of the business or three, do they all need to have good credit? And must they also be part of that loan when applying for a loan?
No, no, they don't have to. It depends their ownership, to be
Mm,
honest with you.
okay.
So if you have the guy with bad credit owns 95% of the business and the other two own 5%, that 5% could be amazing credit. It's not going to help out the business.
Mm,
There's certain, if it's maybe 33%, maybe we could drop one off and then just do the other two. But it just depends on ownership of the business. And like I said, that scenario 95, if it's horrible credit, they're not going to do a loan, because that's the person that needs to apply for the loan is a 95 percenter.
okay. Okay. And the next question that I'm getting asked, and this goes back to like the business banking, and that is how much of my money is insured if I deposit that, say, for example, $10,000?
Well, it should be 250 for the business account or personal.
Yes, for the business
For
account.
the business, it's 250. You can have a million in there. It's always going to be 250.
Okay, 250,000.
Thousand, two hundred
Okay,
fifty thousand.
okay. And that's insured with the FDIC. That's with anybody, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. It's FDIC insured per bank.
Okay. And then if a business owner, there's two business owners on the business account, when I sign a check, do both need to sign the check or just
Mhm.
one?
No, no, only one realistically has to sign the check. Most banks only honor one signature, but as you see, there's some lawyers and stuff that say on checks, and that's just with them and the check company. I say two signers over 25,000 or two signers needed for over 10,000.
Yeah.
That's just something they put on their checks, and if you catch
Mm,
it, you're like, okay, where's the second signature and stuff like that. But whether there's one signature, two signatures, and it gets deposited without us noticing it, banks only require one of them.
okay. Okay. That's good to know because I do get asked that, especially people that are, that have a business account for their church. How would that work? And
Yeah.
I think it's just the authorized signer.
Yeah. Usually there's I don't want to say bookkeeper, but someone that usually handles that.
Yeah.
And usually they're the ones writing all the checks and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's whoever can usually sign on the check.
Okay, great. And then, do you happen to know if business bank accounts integrate with QuickBooks or any bookkeeping software?
Most banks will all have QuickBooks compatibility with most of those types of software.
Yeah.
So they do. I know there's usually a cost to do it, because the bank just doesn't do it free. Usually, if you're asking for that stuff, usually there is a bank fee to it, but some banks don't, but some do.
Okay. Yeah, and I believe yeah, most banks do. I know that we do, and our CPA usually requires a special login, and she's able to download everything she needs to integrate it to
Yeah.
our QuickBooks. Um, and then for people that are wanting to open, so this is like a two-part question. The first one is in
Okay.
regards to business bank accounts. On average, how long does it take, if it takes any time at all, to open that account? Does it take 7 days for it to get approved, or is it on the spot?
Uh, Usually banks, Most of the large banks will do it there on the spot. Some of the smaller banks may take like a day to do it, just because we like. So bigger banks have a lot more technology than the smaller banks, so they
Yeah.
can run things a lot faster, and it's integrated into their account opening system. So, and that'll usually take from sitting down maybe about 20-30 minutes, I would say. Some of the smaller banks would actually get your documentation, will set up every, especially now during times of COVID, they will usually get your documentation, set everything up. You know, I don't want to say research the company, but just look if there's anything, I don't want to say negative about the company, but we'll look at stuff like that. And then once it's ready, we'll usually call the client. It may be the same day or the next day, and we'll say, please come in just for you to sign. So this way, we don't really inconvenience our clients,
Hmm.
and they can go on through their day instead of wasting, not wasting, but instead of being there for 30 minutes to an hour kind of thing with us.
Okay. Okay. And for loans, on average, how long do you think it takes for the loan to get approved?
uh it so depends on the
Yeah.
amounts, and it's if you we have these things called like quick scores that if you don't have an account with us, you can get up to $5,000. It's straight credit approved. That may take about a week or like a few days. And a lot of banks have those products where it's like your credit. You just get it. Say, hey, we're offering you a line of credit, 5,000, 10,000, and that could be on the spot to the next day and stuff like that.
Okay.
Larger, then it goes like certain other loans are that may take a little bit longer. I recently did one for 250 that took 30 days, and they just needed some financials. Bigger loans that need buildings and commercials, those can take up to, sometimes 2 to 3 months or even longer,
Yeah.
depending on appraisals and everything else that may come up.
Yeah, I think it just like you mentioned, it depends on the type of loan or credit line.
Correct.
It can vary from, 72 hours to 72 days to a few months. Um,
And this is like the homes, and like even when you
yeah.
do a home purchase, it so depends on uh when they ask for documentation, how soon you get it to them, if there's not other things needed, because a lot of times you're trying to track down the clients that just say, hey, I'm missing your 2017 taxes, hey, I'm missing your
Yeah.
2018 I'll get it to you. Oh, I gotta find it my. So you know a lot of times it's at the client pace that
Yeah.
why things take longer.
Right. So if anybody's watching and you're thinking of getting a loan, whether it's a month from now or in the near future, start getting organized now versus
Yes.
when you're going to inquire about that loan because it's better to, if you wanted to go faster, have everything ready for at least the
I
last 3 years.
one example is I have a client that's building a apartment complexes, like
Okay.
a big apartment complexes out here in the city of Winnetka, and they're going through the city process.
Mm,
Get all the permits. Their expected time to build or start building is August, or to get the money for a loan is August.
wow.
Right now it's March. We put a date of this month to start collecting all the documentation. It's
Mm,
still from now to August is about 5 months. So it's still time. So in case there's other hiccups or anything else, we give ourselves a little like leeway, more time versus, less time.
I see. No, that's very true, and that's a very good example. So, if you're watching,
Yeah.
start preparing now. Which kind of brings
Yes.
me into the next question, which is the process different for someone that's seeking a loan for their church building than a traditional
No,
business?
we look at the same. It's not that because church revenues are different than
Yeah.
in other business revenues, and COVID, like we had a conversation already, COVID impacts different businesses differently, since a lot of churches are, inside service, and,
Mm-hmm.
2020 was 2020. Um, no, we take into account how much revenue the church brings in. If there's going to be facilities in the church to, let's say, have a school, like some churches have schools attached to it. Is there school operating? Is there also other activities, karate studios, whatever, trainings, things in there? So each church is kind of different in how they run things. So we just have to take everything into account. We do the appraisals. I mean, everything is kind of similar what we do. It's just, these are the guidelines for the church, A, B, and C, versus it being for, let's say, a retail shops kind of thing.
Right. No, that's very true. And this brings me to the other part of that question, which is when you're talking about trainings in school, these have to be trainings that have some sort of profit or money, right? Like money behind the trainings. Because I know a lot of churches, even my father's church, they sometimes offer Bible studies at no cost, right? So it has to
Yes.
be something that's generating revenue for that church.
Correct. Correct. Because all it is everything goes to revenue for the church. So if you have a daycare or a preschool on the side of
Hmm.
the church, which a lot of churches do,
Yeah.
or schools, that revenue from the school adds to the church. If it sometimes the owners will rent that space out to a person that's doing. I know a person that rents out to church on nights for karate,
Yeah.
so they have a karate studio and they use one of the church's facilities, and he
Mm,
pays them rent each week or each month they pay rent. And that just goes part of the church's revenues.
yeah.
So yes, if it's a Bible study and there's no money, then there's nothing to report.
Yeah, yeah, and I've had actually people ask me about that, like, do Bible study classes or any that only if it generates revenue. If you
Yeah.
have a bookstore for the church that generates revenue for the church, then
Yes.
yes, that would count.
Yeah.
And then as far as because someone's asking me if I'm looking to buy a building for my church, how much down payment or loan to value do I need to bring to be able to even just be considered? Is it a
uh
10% down or
no, usually you need a little bit more,
yeah.
maybe 40 or something. It depends if you're doing it like, uh, if we can see if SBA could get involved or something, you may need even less. But it usually you should have a nice, I don't want to say chunk. There's no
Yeah.
specific number, but you should. We're not gonna usually finance it at 100% of the thing. So
Right.
you it's a case by case depending how strong we may make exceptions if we say, hey, this church is bringing in a lot of money,
Mhm.
and look, the revenues look great. Maybe we can do this at 90% loan to value or 80% loan to value. Everything is I want to say a case by case
Yeah.
situation. But if revenues aren't strong and you're trying to get 100% or 90, it's going to be a little bit harder.
Yeah, no, and that kind of addresses the portion because I get churches asking me because my father is also a pastor and he has his
Yeah.
church and they'll ask me do I need to have bookkeeping? Do I need to submit taxes? And my answer is always yes because I saw my
Yes.
father go through that same process.
Just FYI, sometimes churches are seen as tax havens,
Yeah.
and they
Right.
look, because I don't want to say there is fraud with those,
There
but
might
there
be.
are some places, yeah, there is certain amount of fraud. So places have learned to be a little bit more cautious when they look at churches. So just understand, it's good to report taxes. It's good to file everything like you're normally supposed to.
Right. And something that I've learned from my father and him running the church is that just sort of transparency, showing where everything goes. It
Correct.
builds trust not only with the congregation, but those that are lending you money to be able to purchase that building that you're looking to buy or refinance. And so long term, it helps you avoid all those awkward conversations, like you mentioned. Maybe
Yeah.
nothing's happening, but the fact that you don't have everything in place can kind of like make you feel unsure as a lender to want to lend to someone. Um,
And the key rule is a lot of times we'll ask for 3 years of tax returns. So
okay.
just FYI, that's usually what most banks ask for. 3 years tax returns, business, and usually business on the churches,
Okay. And then
unless there's the owner. Yeah.
oh, okay. Okay. That was actually going to be my next question is if this is more general for business owners that are looking to get a loan when it comes to growing their business, a marketing loan or equipment business or those sort of loans. Do you also look at the personal taxes of that individual or just the business?
Uh, it kind of depends. We have this product, and I don't know if other banks do. I'm sure some banks may have it. We have something called a quick score product, which is usually about 250,000, up to 250,000 line of credit. I would say a lot of that part is on your credit. And then it
Mm.
only asks for 1 year business tax returns, your last year business tax returns, and your latest financials, like your year-end financials and your I want year-to-date financials. And usually we will deal with that. Now, if we go the full underwriting rate way, which is the way where we ask 3 years taxes, 3 years, we may be able to get you a lower rate, but it is a full underwriting thing. And yeah, 3 years personal, 3 years business.
Mm. Okay. Good. I appreciate that. And then, oh, this is a good question. As far as like taxes, do they need to be prepared by a certified CPA, or can you do
Yes.
your own taxes?
No, yes.
Yes, no.
For let me just say, things done by CPA are taken a lot better than
Yeah.
things done yourself, because we don't it will request things from the IRS to make sure those are audited and certified taxes if you do the personal one.
Hmm.
And usually, when you get to the level where you're asking for bigger amounts of money, usually people don't have DBAs. They usually have LLCs or
Yeah.
corporations. So, and usually those are always done by CPAs. I would say it's very rare when we see anything done by the individual, unless it's a really small business and they're doing, they could be doing stuff like, I don't want to say cleaning service or something that's like a small little s- business kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. It's
Okay.
not a disqualifier. It's just not seen as good.
Right. You would want it
Mhm.
verified by a third
Uh,
party, and
By a person that knows what they're doing.
yeah.
More. I didn't say you wouldn't, but I'm saying with someone that's their job.
Yeah, and just for your own protection as a business owner, you want to make sure have someone that this is what their specialty is, to avoid any headaches in the future. Because I had a business owner a couple years ago get a massive tax bill because they were doing it everything themselves, and had they had a third party or fourth party oversee that, they probably could have avoided that massive tax bill, especially during COVID.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's so many laws that change every
oh
year,
yeah,
and things you have to do with payroll and everything else, that a lot of people aren't aware of. And usually it's not until they get that tax bill when they say, "Oh, I didn't know you had to do that." And you can't really say, ignorance is
yeah,
that's why you hire these people. And unfortunately, yes, some of them are expensive, but it's just part of doing business.
right. And it'll save you money long term. It's good to
Yes,
invest in your
correct.
business, and I think it'll
Yeah,
save you headaches and
correct.
a ton of mess long term.
Good CPAs are really sometimes hard to find, but it's always, usually people that have these CPAs have been with them forever.
Yeah.
So, like I said, you find a good one and let them help you grow your business also.
Okay. And then another question that someone is asking me is, I put my small business loan on deferment due to COVID. Now that I've opened up my business, should I start making payments on that? Should I contact the bank, or should I wait until my payment is not due until October? Should I wait until then?
You know, it looks better if you start paying
Yeah.
it back sooner. It's just, a lot of people deferred payments and stuff like that. Due to COVID. And some clients I know of, started making payments, say, you know what, we didn't really need the deferment. And our business has actually done better. And they started paying back like normal.
Yeah.
Um, you know, it's like anything else. If you ask to defer something, it usually always doesn't look as good as if you're making your payments on time and you have that track record of, thousand, thousand, thousand versus thousand, nothing, nothing, thousand, thousand. Then there's
Yeah.
always going to be questions when you're doing a loan or something else, that what happened here. And you're going to have to explain how 2020 affected your business, and that they'll look at that if you're trying to get another loan and say, hey,
Mm,
you're not that strong and this and that. So if you can, yes. If you really are struggling and you can't, then just wait till the date.
yeah. No, I think that's a very very good thing to do. And I think I know that the word credit derives from the Latin word trust. And so
Yeah,
if you're able to pay it back and continue building on that trust, it looks better for you long term on paper than it is to just wait it out, especially if
it's
you're
a
able to afford it.
yeah, no, it's an agreement, and you agree
Hmm.
to this is the payment. So it's always nice to follow your agreement.
Yes.
Yeah,
Not sure if you are too knowledgeable in EIDLs, but I have someone asking me. I got an EIDL from the SBA. Now I have a lien on my property.
correct.
Is that something I can remove? Is that something that I should contact the SBA about?
You unless they're paying it off.
Yeah.
That's if you pay it off, yeah, you can have it removed.
Yeah.
It's tied to your property,
Right.
and even when we try to do loans, if they have a EIDL on it, we have to request if SBA will subordinate that loan to
Mm,
us.
okay.
But yeah, it's on there.
Hmm.
It's to help you, and it's like most loans. If you don't want us to guarantee or do a personal guarantee, if you don't have faith in your business, why should we have faith in your business
True.
if you're not willing to do the sacrifice, like we're giving you money kind of thing?
Right.
Yeah,
Right. No, that's very true and very key. And I think like the best thing you can do for this individual asking this is to contact your SBA, your local banker,
correct.
and see what the best process is to facilitate with that, lien. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. That's a lot of people ask that, and
yeah,
it is part of the when you sign the documents or whatever else, they're putting a lien on there,
yeah.
so
They want to guarantee
it's
they get their money back.
and a lot of SBAs put liens on your house. So, that's the only way they trust you with giving you, let's say 200, 300, $400,000 or how much ever they give you.
Right, right. Which brings me to the next question, kind of flowing here, which is
Mhm.
when looking at collateral, do you can look at the collateral of the business or of the individual applying for the business loan?
Well, if it's a business, we look at the business collateral,
Okay.
either the building, or the receivables or whatever equipment. We'll look at all that. It just depends what they're doing the loan for. If it's
Hmm.
actual building, yes, we'll do that collateral. We'll check everything. As far as the business, we'll do appraisals on that business. If it's like a line of credit, then what we're usually doing is off of the business. Let's say they don't own the building, we're usually doing it off of their receivables of what's coming in and stuff like that.
Okay. And then another question is, are people that sell, I don't know if you're familiar with this company called Princess House, but it's almost like a Herbalife type company.
Mhm.
Do you approve lines of credit for people that are selling that sort of product?
Like vitamins.
Vi- Princess House is more like kitchen ware, like appliances, kitchen appliances like blenders, pots and
is
pans.
as long as there's revenues, I'm
Mhm.
sure there's a way to do it.
Okay.
Everything is off of tax returns. It's
Mm.
usually it's hard to say there's a gray area.
Yeah.
There's certain industries right now that a lot of people aren't doing. Marijuana, of course.
Right.
Restaurants are really hard right now just because of 2020.
Yeah.
A lot of hotels, hospitality.
Mm.
It's kind of harder to do loans with those right now. But as long as the business is generating money, yeah, and as long as your credit isn't, you know, really down, then yeah, we should be able. Most banks should be able to do it.
Okay. Because I did have someone ask also, does this apply for Uber and Lyft drivers? Like, am I able to get a loan if I.
It's not the problem with Uber, and that is they're independent contractors.
Right,
It's
right,
not. I want to say it's not a business because a lot of people it is a business,
right.
but it's not something that your business is named Uber.
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's you don't really do them for independent contractors unless they become a business where they say,
Mhm.
I don't know, like you have 10 vehicles and you're renting them all out as a business. But when you're an independent contractor, it's kind of like you're an employee that's not an employee kind of thing.
I
It's
see.
hard. You can't really do anything with that.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Those are actually the only questions I had come
Okay.
in as of right now, but I want to ask you, is there anything that you maybe perhaps can provide as advice for people that are looking to either whether it's this year or next year looking to get that small business loan? Like what are some things that they can start working on right now to better put them in a better place when that time comes?
Everything is building a foundation. That's like most things in life. It's just building a foundation. We all start. Most business owners start from the bottom and stuff like that. I've had businesses I've owned, and in the beginning, you're just doing a lot of, I want to say legwork, but
Yeah.
it's a lot of hustle. There's a lot of, I've owned smog check shops where I have to, advertise, spend money on advertising, hand out flyers, put them out,
Mhm.
put it in little newspaper ads. What you put into the business is what you're going to get out of the business.
Mm.
If you're doing it as a part-time thing, you're probably just going to get part-time money kind of thing from it.
Yeah.
I would say, plan everything, have a business plan. Most people just say, I think I should have a restaurant because I think I can cook well. That's not how
Right.
things should work.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, if I rent this space, how much in revenues do I have to make from, renting this space? How much, what time should be open? What's my key demographic? What am I looking at? I mean, it's going more technical, and usually the people that succeed more have more of a business plan. I,
Yeah.
I know it's sometimes hard to think of, but develop a plan as to how you want to succeed versus let me just go out there and just hope for the best. Is usually I don't know the numbers of businesses that fail in the first years, but it's a high. I think
Yeah.
was it 60% or something like
Yeah, in the
really.
first 5 years, go out of
Yeah,
business.
yeah, it's hard. So, you know, if you want to throw away cash, you can always go to Vegas or you can plan something, you can
Yeah.
just say, you know what, if we're going to open up this shop that sells this, let's just make a plan as to how much is our inventory going to cost, how much can we sell it for, what's the market for it, can we do online, how are we marketing. And then when you think of those ideas, you can also start with, okay, am I going to do this as a DBA,
Yeah.
husband and wife DBA? Am I going to do it at LLC? What's the fees with the LLCs? What's the fees with having a corporation S or C corp? And then kind of go from there. You know, it's always good also to get, like I said, educated on
Mm.
businesses, what's happening in the market
Yeah.
with rents, what's rent control, what's not,
Mm.
what's I would say it's a value of many people to understand their own area demographics, what laws are being passed or not
Yeah.
passed, what opportunities are available to them through the city to start businesses or to because there's a lot of grants for this, there's a lot of grants for that, and each city does different things. Work with, a lot of times I tell people you can always work with the local what do you call those, the city, the
Chamber?
chambers of
Yeah.
commerce, like the chambers of commerce, and see, sometimes people just attend those mixers and see, talk to other business owners that
Yeah.
went through the same situation, or
Yes.
say, hey, how'd you do this, how is this, oh, do you have a good CPA? Most of them are networking
Mhm.
meetings, so you could kind of get the flow of how everything works as a business owner. There's a lot of them would be in the same shoes you were
Mhm.
when you're just starting out. I mean, everything like my job or any job, it's homework, figuring out things, and it just a lot of things come with experience, but um, you know, planning is very key. Everything needs a strategy, and having all that makes your life so much easier and less stress. I mean, there's always stress, but there's less. You
Right,
know,
right. No, and
yeah,
that's very true. And I'm very glad you mentioned that in the beginning, that just because you're a good cook doesn't mean you should open up a restaurant. You
yeah,
want to let the market let you know what they want, and I see that time and time again that people that we work with are very passionate about a certain item that they cook or they make, and then they go out of business a year or 2 years later, and it's because the market didn't need or want that at that time.
yes,
And also the laws, that especially when AB5 came into place,
Yeah,
this specific business was relying on the fact that they can have contractors. And so that immediately changed how they would operate their business and really hurt
yeah.
them long term. So I
I
think,
always
yeah,
I tell people because there was one restaurant I try to help, and I'm like, I can't do much. I'm like, well, you're opening a Mexican restaurant. How many Mexican restaurants are in the same area as you?
yeah,
There, yeah, there's a lot of them. Okay. So do you come from
right,
one? Hey, it's like you're competing against five people who are a block away from you on each corner of the street that people know. And I always I like telling people, sometimes instead of just opening, maybe work for a person
yeah,
as a chef or a cook and see what mistakes they make and try to figure out not to make those mistakes.
yeah,
If they're running the business successful, adopt a lot of the ways they do things. And
right,
this is more real. Yes, you'll get paid less, but the knowledge you learn is so much better than what you could possibly make and or lose when you're doing a lot of these businesses. It's knowing your demographic, knowing that if there's an appetite for that demographic in there. This is
mm-hmm,
not There's not always an appetite for certain things, even though you
yeah,
may think there is. But online is always a good way to start for selling things because
yeah,
that's free almost. Yeah, you
right,
spend a little bit on advertising, but that's a new way for a lot of people to go is selling on that versus having a brick and mortar store where they
right.
have to pay rent.
Exactly. It lowers the overhead cost and
Correct.
all of the different headaches that go into all that. But,
Yeah.
even just now with the different, technology and opportunities that are made available to us, if you are a restaurant wanting to go into the restaurant or food industry, you can do a pop-up kitchen and test out the market to see if you get a response
Correct.
before you go and buy a building and then it causes more headache. And so I think that's very true what you mentioned, and very important, even just for me with the nonprofit, would help me be successful is going to the chambers of commerce, interviewing other executive directors, other leaders, like what did you do, what did work, what didn't
Correct.
work. And it takes a lot of work to succeed.
Yes.
I mean, it takes a lot of work, and sometimes people don't
Yes.
realize that the follow-up that it goes, not just with, in the business itself, but getting the clientele and help building that trust long
Correct.
term and having them return time and time again. So
People just see when businesses are busy and full. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, look, he's making so much money. It's so easy. And, they don't know the struggles that a lot of these business owners had in the beginning. And
right.
even with people that want to buy like food trucks and
Oh, yeah.
stuff like that, because people don't understand those are expensive. They're not cheap and they're not, I have clients that are, own taco trucks and
Yeah.
they do very well in them, but they say, oh, we gotta buy another truck. It's how much is that? About 80,
Wow.
100,000 the way I want to set it up. But it's like a little, condo there, for prices. So
Yeah.
it's understand everything before you get in. And like you said, pop-up store or learn from people. Don't just assume that because this person made a bunch of money, how hard can it be? And I'll do the same thing as this guy.
Right.
Because remember, you hire staff, you hire people, you got to pay your staff. If your money isn't coming in, those people on your staff aren't going to be happy.
Yeah, no. They're not gonna be
Yeah,
happy at all.
trust me, I've seen a lot
Yeah.
of bounce checks for waitresses and waiters when
Uh,
they come to the bank. Oh, he has no money again. I don't know why I work for this person. Kind of like
oh
that.
my gosh, that is
That's common.
crazy. Yeah, no, and I see that. I mean, when I talk to business owners, a lot of people want to follow the trend. Well, this is so popular right now, and I know I can. I'm like, don't
Yeah,
follow a trend. Follow something that you're actually passionate about, that you can
correct.
provide some sort of value and service, because this will help alleviate or solve this problem. Not everybody's doing it, so I'm gonna hop on and do that thing. Like, no.
Yeah,
So
no.
yeah.
Usually when you see a trend and you go in, you're already too late.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, if
Exactly.
you were the one starting the trend, that's something. But if you didn't start the trend, usually you're too late
You're
for it.
too late. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you so much and
No
for joining
problem.
us for this conversation and providing more value and information to our business owners. These are the things that I get asked time and time again. And,
Yeah.
I'm glad that we were just able to really answer those questions. Is there anything you would like to add before we end this?
No, this was fun. I always, like I said, I always like helping out giving guidance and
Yeah.
helping out, especially the future money makers of the world, where
Right.
they're starting their businesses, and who knows, any one of the people who are on the call may be the next whatever large business, and
Yeah.
this is where we got them to inspire them to, this is what we have to do, and this is how we have to grow. So I'm always, like I said, I'm always happy to help out. Whatever
Thank
advice I
you.
can give, I'm more than happy to give it.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We definitely appreciate that. And everybody watching, I hope this was very beneficial. I know we were able to answer many of your questions. And so if you have anything else, please reach out to myself or, through Messenger or through my email, and we'll be more than happy to assist you with that process, whatever it is, or connect you with someone that can help you with your business banking needs or lending needs. That's what we're here for, to help you hopefully make it a little easier with navigating through all of this technology and resources that are available to you guys.
Mhm.
Lastly, I do want to remind everybody, if you do need a COVID test, our facilities are open. Again, I know a lot of business owners have asked, like, where can I get a COVID test that is no cost? Because I know they can be expensive. Or we're offering them for free at our facilities. We've opened them up for the community Tuesday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. No appointment required. If you want to test for yourself or your employees, feel free to stop by. But with that, I want to thank everybody for watching. Again, Maurice, thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.